And starting on time. All right, I have got noon, so I'm going to go ahead and get started because it's about time management and we have to respect our time. So let me go again and get started. I'm going to mute everyone, but I will give you the permission to unmute yourself if you'd like to. So today we're talking about time management for the successful gift officer. Again, you don't have to be a major gift officer, but some of the case studies that we're going to show here is geared towards major gift officers, people who are working in a fundraising organization on their time management and why that's beneficial, especially now. So today's discussion is going to, first of all, help us recognize the value of our time. And then we're going to talk about why time management is important. There are a couple of myths out there about time management, and we're going to see what the experts have to say about that and discuss what some of the common time wasters are that we see in the office environment or even now the work from home environment, as some of us are dealing with that. I'm going to talk about a case study and how we were brought in Health Giving to look at some time management of a major gift office and a fundraising office. And then I want to get into the smart time management approach, which I'm hoping will be the key takeaway as we think about SMART goals. How do we also apply that acronym to some of our time management, if you will? And so I think the first thing we have to do is recognize the value of our time. So if you haven't thought this through, going forward, as of today, May 27th, 2021, there are only 148 work days left in 2021. So if you're planning on closing that gift, if you're planning on getting that proposal funded, if you're planning on getting those visits in for your month, if you're planning on making sure your board members all get their end of the year gifts in, you only have 148 days, work days to do it. I know the calendar has more dates. And as of 12 p.m. right now, there are only 1,180 hours left, work hours left in 2021. So your scarcest resource is time. And that's why this is so important. So if you think about that, this is just how the work days are spread out in a calendar year. We only have about 20 on average days, 250 work days in all in 21. So if we look at the fourth quarter, or as we get closer to June 30 here, as we end quarter two and get into the third quarter, fourth quarter, you really only have 64 days in quarter three and 61 work days in quarter four. So time is precious. And so you really need to think about the attributes of time. And I'm going to talk a little fast here as we talk about time, because I want to make sure I allow time for questions at the end. And I wouldn't be a good time management person if I didn't manage this time well. So what are the attributes of time? So time can't be stored and it can't be saved for future use. And every activity, whether it's a phone call, sending an email, following up, sending that thank you, they all require some minimum of time to get done. And time is neutral, it's finite, and it has a value like currency. And I think that's important for all of us as professionals to think about it. We are all equal when it comes to time. So whether we're the CEO, executive director, grant writer, fundraiser, or janitorial services within our organizations, we're all equal when it comes to time. And once it's gone, it's gone. So I always say, value your time, and other people will do the same. So I'm hoping you'll get some lessons here today about time management. So time management is about managing ourselves in relation to time. It's about setting up priorities and taking charge of our situation and utilizing time well when we're at work or when we're devoting our time to be at work. It's about making the most and the more value you can put in your time, the better it is. Time management makes you more efficient. It makes you feel calmer and in more control. It reduces the amount of unhealthy stress that you might feel. It gives you more energy. And it helps you develop some qualities like patience or persistence or discipline or assertiveness. So time management and good time management helps you achieve what you need to do better and faster. Second, I want to admit one person. Okay, so So there's a couple of myths that I want to debunk about time management. And we did some research here on a number of time management experts, and we'll show you the sources of these. But let's go through these myths on time management. And the first one is that you can manage your time. But actually, the experts say that you can only manage yourself. You're not managing time, you're managing yourself in the here and the now. And you can only use the sum of your experiences, your knowledge to decide what you want to do and how you want to use your time. Um, there's also that myth that you should be doing something when it's time management. I should be doing this, I should be doing this, I should be checking this off of my checklist. And the reality is, you don't have to do anything other than accept the consequences of your choices and how you use your time. And then there's this myth, and I've heard others say it, I myself have said, oh, I can multitask well. But the reality is, the experts will tell us that multitasking, the reality is that when we combine tasks, we actually reduce the quality of our attention and the consequences of the actions that we take during that time that we're trying to accomplish something. The other myth is it's best to do it now. And what the experts actually tell us is it's actually, are we responding rather than reacting? And that's what we have to think about. Unless something is genuinely urgent or it takes less time to do it than to write it down, it's better to schedule it for future action. And it's probably better when we talk about responding to our text messages or emails or other things. You know, we have to think about, is it best to do it now? And the reality is, it may not be. To-do list work is a myth. To-do lists work, but you as an individual, you still have to review them. You still have to remind yourself of the items on those lists, and you actually have to do the task that's listed on your to-do list, or it's just a waste of time. And the other myth is there are rules that you have to follow. There really aren't rules. It's about habits. It's about principles. It's about degrees of success. And it's very personal. You have to do what works for you. There is no hard and fast rule on time management. Here's a myth. I know I've heard myself say this times. I probably did this a lot when I was in college too and crammed at the end, but I work well under pressure. That's a reality. That the experts say that more often than not, pressure increases stress and it decreases the quality of your work. Or I don't have enough time. There's a lot going on. And this was common and still is common as people were thinking through all that's on their to-do list as we get back engaged in full go here as the pandemic recovery starts to happen. But the experts say you can do it. It's what you choose to do and when you choose to do it that counts. There is enough time, according to the experts, when we talk about time management. So there are 10 very common time wasters that the experts all point out. And so I want to go through these 10 as well and discuss them. The first one is scheduling too little or not enough time for the necessary top priority tasks. The second one is doing it yourself, being involved in too many details, too many routine tasks, not allowing yourself to share in some of the activities, the tasks, the things that need to be done. The third one is being interrupted by non-priority distractions, by phone calls, or even social media alerts if we allow ourselves to be monitoring our social media during that time. And so what some of the experts say is that 50%, people talk about interruptions per day. Average employees say 56 interruptions happen on a daily basis, and they spend then 2 hours recovering from distractions per day. And then on average, 80% interruptions of work are considered trivial. So think about how your day was interrupted by an email that came in, a phone call, a fire that needed to be put out, and we'll talk more about that as well. And here's a scary one. In the world of smartphones, current statistics says 110 times per day, the average person presses the home button on their smartphone. Whether they're looking to see if someone responded to a Facebook post, whether they're looking to see if someone sent a text, whether they're looking to see an email, they are pressing that home button on their smartphone 110 times per day. Is that a good use of time? Is it something that should be done? And how are you effectively using your time? The fourth one is trying to reach zero inbox with your emails. Um, the average person, according to Statistics Weekly, and I know some of you get more than this, 304 business emails received on average in a week. 36 times the average employee checks their email in an hour, and 16 minutes is spent refocus after handling some form of incoming email. So how are we spending our time? Again, and where do you fall in terms of some of these statistical averages? Packing the day with unproductive meetings. Now, I know this is a group of people sitting around a table, and we weren't doing much of that recently, but you'll see that some of the average Zoom meeting goers have responded in this report that 62% or 62 meetings attended monthly by most employees. Monthly, that's how many meetings. I don't know how many you have on your schedule, but that's how many monthly. 50% of those meetings were considered time wasted. 31 hours were spent in unproductive meetings over a month. The average Zoom meeting goer, and that was a lot of us lately, 90% daydreamed during one of those Zoom meetings. 45% felt overwhelmed by the number of meetings, Zoom meetings, they had to attend. And I'm sure if we think about how we spent our time 2020 and now 2021, 73% of the average Zoom meeting goer did other work while their Zoom meetings were taking place, and 47% complained that Zoom meetings were the #1 time waster during work hours. So packing the day with unproductive meetings. How are we using our time, and are we using it effectively? Number 6, and I already mentioned this, always fighting fires or feeling like you're always in crisis. And number 7, lacking objectives or deadlines or priorities in meetings, in phone calls, or in your day. You know, the experts say that we need to get better at proactively managing our calendars. Instead of leaving our calendar as a blank open slate for others to populate, we need to set times up for when we are getting work done. I don't know if that's every Friday you spend some time plotting some chunks of focus time in advance so you can meet the demands of projects or responsibilities or donor relations. But how are you managing your calendar? You know, treat time as a locked-in meeting, the same way you would if you were meeting with a donor. You know, don't tag it as tentative. It is your focus time. It is your reading time. It is your callback time. It is your donor outreach time. You can always change the meeting. And if priorities are pushing, you can do that. But if you're holding fast and focusing as much time as possible on getting stuff done, you will get things done. The next is having lots of paperwork, lots of reports, lots of strategy plans and research being done, and too much paperwork, too many reports, too many strategy plans are seen as time wasters. And then the next one, number 9, is leaving tasks partially done, just jumping from task to task and switching priorities constantly. We really have to pay attention to fragmented time. Fragmented time occurs due to small, those small pockets in between meetings, those 15 or 30-minute blocks of time that exist between our scheduled meetings. How are we spending those time? And are we jumping back and forth? And are we creating enough breathing space intentionally in our calendars so we can get things done? But most of us are very passive with our calendars. And that's why I'm hoping this will give you a little bit of thoughtfulness in how you're approaching your time management. And then number 10 time waster is socializing and idle conversation. In the image, you might be able to see that, it's the Zoom constant, but in the background, it's the old water cooler back when we get to those days where we're meeting again in an office and standing around and socializing and idle conversation. It happens today on Zoom meetings, and specifically related to the pandemic and recent times. Experts say that we need to manage our work from home guilt. This is a popular issue right now, and it's a popular topic of people working remotely, and it gets brought up by managers and employees all the time. And in reality, most employees end up working more productively at home than they do or did at an office. But it's easy for someone to get caught up in working until midnight because they're already home, or at least at least in the office there's an element of needing to go home and go and get some sleep. But some of us were overworking and spending too much time and not managing our time well because we may have felt that guilt about being home and working from home. The other side of the concern then is that because we're not visible to each other and the powers that be, if you will, we have this guilt that we have to work longer hours in hopes that we're showing someone our usefulness or our productivity. And that's a recipe for burnout. It absolutely is. So we have to be sure to lay out our clear office hours, whether we're in the office or working from home or hybrid someplace. We have to make sure that we're clear with our manager and our leaders how we are managing our time. And we have to focus on results, not visibility, not time at the computer, not time on Zooms. And we need to prioritize our energy. We have to be good energy managers. We have to be sensitive to one another's energy, because that'll help us work effectively. So do we need a Zoom meeting, or could this be done in the old-fashioned phone call like we used to do? Can this be done in an email? Can it be done in a text message? Does it even need to be an email? Can it be, can we wait on it? We have to pay attention to when we're most productive, when we're most focused, and also think about the energy of our coworkers and work and try to align our energy windows with their energy windows. And what we're discovering is if some of us are more productive working in the evenings and some of us are morning people, but if the work gets done, we have to make sure that we are not feeling guilty about if we're sleeping in, but then going to work hard in the late afternoon. So those were the 10 common time wasters. And I mentioned, and we're happy to share this slides with you, but here's some of the references of the various experts that we looked at, starting with a Forbes magazine article that just came out about effective time management and how to use it when you're working from home, all the way down to some of the key articles that you see from the BBC News and from Effective Meetings and others. So think about these time wasters. In summary, if I had to summarize what these articles and these experts really say, it's, avoid taking on too much. Avoid allowing constant interruptions. Avoid estimating and capturing your time inaccurately. Avoid procrastinating. Avoid doing everything yourself. Avoid managing your work from home guilt, or maybe not avoid it, but don't have work from home guilt. Avoid being a perfectionist. We'll talk more about that. And avoid dismissing technology. There are some great calendaring and time management technologies that are out there now to help us manage our time. So I want to share a case study that we were brought in as a consulting company, and this is looking at the performance of one foundation. And I think as you see this may help you think about your time. And if you're a manager and you're managing a team, this may be effective in thinking about how you manage your team's time. Or if you're on the team and you're working within a team, how you respect each other's energy and time. So this was before the pandemic. So nobody was working from home at this time, just so that's clear. But we were brought in for a hospital it was a regional health system that had 4 hospitals. They had 12 staff members. And they wanted us, Health Giving, to evaluate how much time their gift officers were spending on different tasks. And we worked with the president of this foundation to create a way to evaluate time and time management. And we were asking the question, how much time are the gift officers spending on high return, essential top prospect management activities versus time spent on low return tasks? Are the gift officer workloads equally distributed as well? So that's what we were brought in to do. We talked about how we wanted to help them manage their time better. And why we were brought in is because the foundation was gearing up for a campaign, but it also had flat results for 4 years. It was barely beating last year's attainment. So we knew that the foundation needed to focus time on prospect outreach, donor management, and that needed to be a priority. And they needed to get back aligned with the discipline of doing the right things at the right time. And so we were asked to evaluate how they were putting in their time and whether or not that time was going to, time management was going to help them because they had very ambitious fundraising goals for the future. And the staff was feeling stressed. If you talk to them, they said, boy, I'm working harder than ever before. But the real question was, are they being active or are they being productive? And so let's look at it so we can help them be confident in the work they're doing, be productive, and be in control of their time so they're not all stressed and feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm working so hard. Productive versus active. We also needed to look at the balance of responsibilities because there were multiple major gift officers. There are actually 4 in this case. And in working with their foundation president and some best practices that we knew and saw, we said, look, a best practice is that your gift officers should be spending 40 to 60% of their time on advancing relationships. And what does that look like? Well, that's developing donors and top prospect relationships through in-person visits, even if that's in person on Zoom. That's creating strategies and participating in strategy meetings as it relates to projects that needed funded and the funders and potential funders that could make things happen. It was about how are we leveraging our volunteers and networking and in soliciting. It was about following up with donors and following up with donors after visits, not just visiting for visit's sake, but actually making those effective visits. And then how are we documenting that progress and the relationships using the CRM, updating our strategy so we can do good forecasting and have good professional disciplines so we can be effective now and as they started to go into a campaign. So the next slide here is a very busy slide, and I don't expect you to read it. I'm actually going to call this out. But we started asking questions as gift officers, how much of your work week is spent? And we started asking questions in a survey, and we broke down with the foundation leader what were high ROI good activities, what were medium activities, and what were low. So here's what low looked like, and I'm only going to focus on a few of them. One of the things that we judged along with the foundation president was attending or participating in various administrative and committee meetings and workshops and conferences that weren't directly connected to fundraising or the foundation work. Designing and writing fundraising and informational literature, having gift officers doing that. And again, this was a team of 12, so they did have development communications and stewardship and research, but this is just the 4 gift officers. Entering their own donations in or conducting data entry and gift processing. We considered that to be a low time management effort for gift officers. Or conducting their own research to fill their portfolio and determine who might be the best prospects. And you can see a couple other bullet points there of things that we judged as low ROI for these gift officers. We asked then medium. We decided what were some of the medium responsibilities that we wouldn't say they were low. There wasn't a low return. There was a good return. They weren't the highest priorities we wanted them to be focusing on, but let's look at those and judge those. And just a couple of them. I got some bulleted here or bolded here. Representing the foundation, being able to articulate assigned hospital liaison areas and fundraising priorities. Training and mentoring other development staff members was a medium priority. Developing and executing annual fundraising plans for their designated areas in the hospital. So these were hospital fundraisers that have designated areas. You're the fundraiser over cancer. You're the fundraiser over neurosciences. You're the fundraiser in charge of grateful patients, right? So it was a medium opportunity if they were helping develop and executing those plans. And then drafting and submitting press releases or acting as the primary contact person to marketing to promote positive donor gift announcements and stories to make sure that the impact and the cultural stories were being covered. We deemed those all medium. We didn't say they were low, and it was okay, and we wanted to see how much time was being spent on these medium activities. And then the high activities, as we defined them, were advancing donor and top prospect relationships through in-person visits, creating and executing on individual plans that deepen top prospect relationships, setting up leaders, board members, partners like grateful patients and doctors and nurses to discuss and conduct major gift solicitations, board members and fundraising committees, meeting with and making presentations to physicians or nursing partners to build a culture of philanthropy and uncover grateful patients. These are some of the things on this list that we deemed were high ROI opportunities. You can even see meeting with the chief development officer, meeting with the CEO, board leadership as well to talk prospect strategies. So take a look here. Out of the 4 gift officers, 3 of them were major gift officers by title, and 1 was plan giving officer. So of the 4 of them, I remind you that the high activities were the ones that we deemed had the best return on investment. The low ones, low return on investment. I almost say time wasters. And then the medium. I see a lot of red and yellow here. I don't see a lot of green. And so this team, I remind you, was flat for 4 years and about to get into a campaign. Where were they focusing their time? Well, here's where they were focusing their time. When we took all the team gift officers together, 49% of their time as gift officers cumulatively was spent on low ROI activities. It doesn't take a genius to say, well, why are they flat in their fundraising? Why are they not seeing the results? Again, I posed the question, was this activity or productivity? If you would have interviewed them, they would have told you how busy they were, constantly in meetings, constantly being called to do things, constantly reaching out, constantly busy, didn't have enough time in the day, but they were active. They weren't productive. And when we actually did this assessment and looked at an audit of their time, we discovered some things that were kind of troubling here. So the affirmative in this case, 80% of them were spending at least 1 hour per week on preparing written proposals and scripted solicitations for individuals, physician leaders, and or their board members. 60% of them were spending greater than 5 hours developing strategies to engage volunteer leadership and their community. The gift officers did not feel that they were bogged down with gift processing or data entry. That was good. And all 6 of these, that was including the prospect manager and the CEO or CDO, they were spending less than an hour per week on gift entry and gift processing. And 60% spent less than 5 hours stewarding relationships with major donors, or greater than 5 hours stewarding those, which was actually, these are all affirmative. But the findings on the negative, the concerns we found that 60% of the gift officers spent at least 1 hour per week in non-direct fundraising meetings. In fact, 2 gift officers are spending over 5 hours in these meetings. Activity versus productivity, non-direct fundraising matters. They were spending that much time. 100% indicated that they spent at least 1 hour on special events. Not major gifts, not highly rated prospects, not even prospect interaction, but special event planning or related to that. Not one gift officer indicated spending more than 10 hours on recruiting, organizing, or meeting with, or directing efforts on leadership volunteers and fundraising. 80% of the gift officers were spending less than 1 hour connecting with clinical partners, nurses, caregivers, physicians. They were not building a culture of philanthropy or uncovering grateful families, grateful patients. They were not spending time with them, and 80% of them. And then not one gift officer responded that they're currently spending greater than 10 hours per week in strategy meetings, getting appointments and visits, or setting up a major gift solicitation. That's why we were seeing an issue with this organization being flat in its fundraising, and they were gearing into a campaign. Here's a quote from that plan giving officer number 4. She said, I seem to find myself spending too much time with my C donors, ABCs, C donors versus my top A donors. They help me reach my visit numbers. I also sometimes find myself wasting time on non-prospect management activity, like spending 2 days on a hospital legacy society luncheon event that has little to do with my principal prospects. I know I need to focus on time management and prioritization. So again, activity versus productivity. Activity doesn't always equal productivity. And I know we can't delegate all of these responsibilities. And in smaller shops, sometimes you are the event planner as well as the fundraiser. But being active is getting things done, but being productive is getting the right things done. And so manage your time so you make sure that the highly ROI activities are getting done. If we're active but not productive, we accomplish little and we fail to reach our full potential of what we're trying to do. We can't settle for just being active. We need to focus on the right things so we can be productive at work. Um, I know some of you know I wrote a book, and there's a quote in my book, so I'm going to pull it out. It's weird to quote yourself in a presentation, but I will. Being a successful charitable gift officer does not make you manage your time well. Managing your time well makes you a successful charitable gift officer. So I just thought I would share that. So again, on this case, now what do? Well, they think about goals, they think about priorities, they think about planning, and they think about their time. And so they ask questions, why am I doing this? The activity that I'm doing. What is my ultimate goal? Why will I succeed? And what happens if I choose not to do this? And so let's talk through work smart versus work hard. Are we too busy to improve? And again, I love this comic here. You can see that someone invented the wheel, but we're still not using it because we're too busy. Work smarter, not harder, and definitely not longer than you have to. Whether you're working from home, whether you're remote down in your basement or in your spare bedroom or at your home office, smarter, not harder. It's not uncommon to hear gift officers and fundraisers claim to be so busy, yet they're not raising money. Being busy with non-value added, low ROI is not productivity. As the quote says, remember, motion doesn't equal direction. Productivity is not about being a workhorse and keeping busy and burning the midnight oil and being signed into Zoom meetings 24/7. It's not about chasing after elusive goals. It's about priorities. It's about planning. It's about fiercely protecting your time and your calendar. So let's get into what I talk about, smart time management. And it's a little bit different than SMART goals, right? SMART time management, same acronym, is about scheduling your time wisely. It's about making time. It's about arranging your time, rationing your time, and taking time. And I'm gonna talk about a lot of time management experts and books here. All I've done is created an acronym and kind of built it into a formula, but this is really other people's words here, and I'll show you what I mean by this. So let's talk the first one, scheduling time wisely. So if you haven't had a chance to read this book called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, I suggest it. It's a great management of time book, and it's about scheduling, that first S, scheduling the most important task of the day first. So Eat That Frog means put things first before anything else. Your frog is your biggest, most important task of the day. And so Brian Tracy says, tasks that will generate at the greatest positive impact. Eat the frog first, the first thing done before you do anything else. He also talks about scheduling time to avoid procrastination. Procrastination is the thief of time. So Tracy says, don't procrastinate. Take care of the difficult calls, the difficult emails as quickly as possible. Eat the frog. Explore why you're resistant to starting off with the difficult or the most important task first. Eat the frog means just do it. Otherwise, the frog will eat you. And that's a quote from Brian's book. The next one on schedule your time wisely is schedule time wisely so you don't lose sight of objectives, performance, and goals. And again, if you've had a chance to read this book, The 1 Minute Manager, came out a couple of years ago, great book. But what it talks about in terms of time management is it says, prepare meetings, have to have an agenda. Don't walk into a meeting unless there's an agenda. The average executive is spending greater than 40% of their time in meetings that go too long. So what happens if we only had a 1 minute meeting? Could we do that? Could we do things quickly? Could we get what's done? Sometimes we call them huddles, but could meetings be accomplished in minutes and rather than hours? And then do we keep track of decisions made in the meetings? Are we walkouting every meeting with who's responsible for what by when? This is a good meeting or good time management book to read. If you haven't had a chance to do it, pick it up. It will help you understand the value of that 1 minute meeting. And again, schedule time wisely, another one. Schedule time to review and respond to emails. So this comes from Timothy Ferriss. This book was called The 4-Hour Work Week. And so what he talked about is check your email when you schedule to check your email. Don't do it just to do it. And don't leave Outlook open all day. Open it, check your emails at the time you scheduled, and then close it. So that the reminders aren't even popping up, or you're not even seeing those little bings on your computer telling you have an email. You're not worried about it. And then set up, and I think this one's brilliant, an auto response informing people that you'll be reviewing and responding to emails at between 3 and 5 daily, not before, because you're eating your frog in the morning. You're taking on your biggest tasks. Imagine if we did that. I don't do this. I think it's a brilliant idea, but I don't do this. And don't check your emails first thing in the morning. Get good and efficient at how you're going to communicate what you're going to do. Schedule time to review and respond to emails is a great message from this book, The 4-Hour Work Week. And again, it's by Tim Ferriss. And then he also says, learn how to say no. This is part of scheduling your time wisely. Where and when you can, say no. Protect against overscheduling yourself. Don't be afraid to do that, even to your boss or your boss's boss or your chairman. You can't do everything, and trying to do everything is a recipe for failure. So carefully guard your yeses. Set boundaries. That's how you can schedule time wisely. And then here's my advice on this. Schedule donor relations time, because I know one of the least favorite parts of fundraising is performing those non-revenue generating activities like handling donor relation issues. You didn't spell my name right. Mr. and Mrs. wasn't in the salutation. I'm angry, right? Whatever, processing gift agreements and pledge forms and chasing after financial planners to make sure we get signatures, or internal people to make sure that we got the right signatures. Schedule that time, or you can run after that all day and waste your time. Responding to in-depth donor concerns. I wasn't seated at the right table. You didn't respond to me in the right way. These donor relations issues happen. It's part of our work, but schedule that time. Schedule your time wisely and facilitate then your stewardship reports and paperwork so you don't get hung up on these. The next and smart is make time. And that's about the early bird gets the worm, right? So make time by making your day longer. If you're not a morning person, maybe it's adding an hour on the end of the day. But if you're a morning person, add an hour to your day. Adding that productive hour, getting up a little earlier, it helps you get things done. That's how you make time. It's that quiet time in the morning, or it's that quiet time in the evening if you're someone that's better at that. But make it the time that you are in the office, or that your home office is open before anyone else starts imposing on your time. Think about that extra hour in the beginning or the end of your day. And Ben Franklin used to say, you may delay, but time will not. So make time to focus, spend some quiet time, make plans so you have some uninterrupted time, and find your getaway place. And even at home, find your getaway place. Arrange time. And this one comes from, and I've quoted this before, so some of you that are clients, I think most of you are clients on this, you'll remember me talking about Atul Gawande and the Checklist Manifesto. I love this book. But this is about, he says, keep it simple and short. Put a checklist. At the top, put what's critical. And then think about how you work through your day. Get those things done, confirm your time, and then adjust and streamline your checks as you go. Good book if you're looking at time management. Here's another one, Steve Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Another great business management book. But Stephen has this 4-quadrant to-do. They call it the WE-ME, what's most important. If you structure every activity as you sit down to plan your day and you say, okay, what's most important for me to do and what's urgent? Everything in quadrant 1 is your first thing that you're going to work on. Everything that's important that's not urgent may be what you put off. The things that are not important but urgent, they need time and attention, but you start quadrant 1, work to quadrant 2, 3, 4, and you can do it for your work week, or you can do it for your entire month. And then arrange your time better. That's the other arrange here is your workspace, whether it's home or office. Clutter means you're sometimes wasting time to find things. And this is also your electronic shared files. If it takes you a long time to dig to find that old template or to find that letter you sent that you're trying to resend to another donor, organize yourself better, create a business environment that works for you. Think about what the lighting looks like, background, but set the stage and get to work. That's the time management when you're arranging time. Rationing time, I'm calling out the donor here, David Allen, who wrote this book called Getting Things Done. And he talks about just take 2 minutes for the easy tasks. Think about what's easy, take 2 minutes, get it off your plate. Quick and easy, get it out of the way, and make sure they don't pile up, because if those easy tasks pile up, you create noise and you create this situation where it becomes hard to handle, and those small little tasks build up, and then they build stress. So know what you can handle quickly, know that what you can delegate off quickly if you need to, but don't allow that noise to build. So if you haven't had a chance to read this David Allen book, Getting Things Done, it's a great time management book. He also talks about rationing time for email management, kind of repeating theme here, but he says, manage your inbox, focus on one email at a time, set a good filing system using your subfolders, read each email once, never read an email twice. You read it, you respond to it, you read it, you delete it. And don't check email every time your phone vibrates that you've got a new one. Your inbox is not your to-do list, and sometimes it's nice to be reminded. And in this case, this book does a great job of telling it. And the other thing about rationing time then is this idea of, and maybe you've heard this before, there was a US Army General, Abrams, and he had this philosophy of when eating an elephant, you take one bite at a time. These giant projects that seem like, how are we ever going to get this done? He says, cut the big jobs into small chunks, and then order the chunks in terms of their importance, and then work one chunk at a time. Don't be intimidated by these big tasks. Just ration your time and make sure you work that way. And then lastly, in our SMART, so we spelled out S-M-A-R-T. The last one is take time. Take time for the valuable things, whatever's necessary that you need to do. Take time for the big gift. They take more time sometimes. So you're calling and dealing with those families, those prospects. Take enough time to prepare the important presentation or even the script for the donor call. Even if it means putting in a few extra hours, take that time. If closing a gift or getting a gift agreement or drafting a stewardship report requires a little bit of extra time because this is an important donor or important time in your fundraising year or your campaign, take it. Regardless of what it does, make sure you're taking time for the important things. You don't find time for important things, you take time for important things. Again, let me say that one more time, I think that's important. You don't find time in your calendar for important things. You really have to take the time for those things that require a little time and attention, and to make sure that you're getting things done. You also have to take the time for the things that are worth it. Work hard when you need to, but understand why you're working so hard and why it's important. Never lose sight of the fact that we work hard so that we can enjoy a higher quality of life for those that we love. So make sure you're enjoying those things that are important to you so you can relax, recharge, and make sure that you're enjoying family and friends. Those are my two daughters, they are my wife. But make sure you're spending the time and taking the time for the things that are worth it. So again, SMART time. These are the things I want you to remember. Schedule your time wisely. Make time. Arrange time, ration time, and take time. That's what I mean by smart time management. Every one of these, every one of these books on time management and these experts really repeat some of the same things, and they're important things, but I think this is the best way to summarize everything that they say. So I didn't want to have a Zoom on time management and then say we were running late and that we weren't allowed to ask any questions because I threw a lot at you. So I'm happy to open this up. You can take yourself off mute, But here's what we talked about in this Lunch and Learn webinar. We recognize the value of your time. I showed you how many days you have left and how many hours you have left. We don't have much, so we have to work hard. We are in the second half of the year. I talked about why time management's important. I talked about some of those myths of time management and debunked them, so we are thinking how we're using our time and using it effectively. Talked about what the research says are common time wasters. If you recognize some of those in your life and in your professional daily management of your time, maybe you have to get rid of some of those wasters to make sure that you're focusing on the good ROI activities. And then we looked at that case, that fundraising hospital foundation of 12 staff members, 4 major gift officers, and they were not producing results, flat results for 4 years, and they couldn't figure out why. Everyone on the team said, we are working so hard, but what we discovered is activity versus productivity. And what I showed you is there really is a difference. And then we examined smart time management and that approach to smart time management. So I did want to allow time. We have about 10 minutes here for questions. So I thank you. I want to thank our clients, and I want to thank all of you for doing this. We do these connections so we can stay connected to you, our webinar series that we do, so we can stay connected to you and add value to your team so you can learn and grow. So if you want to take yourself off mute, if there are any questions, I am going to stop sharing and feel free to, if you have any questions. Well, it's good to see all your faces. I know what you're all thinking. The extra 10 minutes Bill gave me, I'm going to go make some prospect calls and take advantage of the time. All right. It's good to see some of you. Tom, I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. John, Lisa.
You too, Bill.
All right. Well, good. If there's nothing else, I'll give you the time back, and we will we'll share this presentation with you all that signed on. I hope you found this helpful this afternoon.
One quick question.
Oh, yeah, sure, John.
Okay, so obviously what you told us makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What's our first step in actually doing it? Following the SMART method. What is the first thing we should do? So
manage your calendar. Make sure that you are blocking out focus time. If you would look at my calendar today, I have blocks of time that I just say focus time. And if I had a boss, they'd probably say, what are you doing for those 2 hours? It doesn't matter. What it means is I know that that's if I have administrative things to do, if I have client relationship things to do, if I have business running things to do. I know that I'm doing that during my focus time. I also use color coordination. I use Outlook. I don't know if you do. It's not always the calendaring that people prefer, but I have colors to what I know is family time. I have colors to what I know, which is client work out of the office, client work in the office. In your case, it could be donor relations work. It could be outreach and fundraising. And I've told this story before. I think some of the best times to try to reach out to prospects or to connect with people are the times where you want to make sure you're blocking your time and using those times to make phone calls or to reach out and to try to connect. So it really comes down to calendar management, John, and make sure that you're not, as I say, you're not loose with your calendar, but very focused and very, a professional discipline of, I shouldn't have any open spots on my calendar. If they're open, how am I utilizing my time? Is it focus time? Is it reading time? Take the time to read. Some of these books I read during work hours because I think that's valuable to step away and read what other experts are saying about how we manage our time.
I'll give a shout out to the Brian Tracy book, Eat That Frog. I find myself procrastinating on the things that I don't want to do. So I do other productive work and I get a lot of other things done and keep procrastinating. And his concept of eating the frog, doing it first thing in the morning is spot on. It's
a great book. Yeah. Lisa, I think Lisa Zellers from Altman has a question. And if any of you else have any comments on those books or have read them and picked up any, tidbits or advice, please share. Lisa.
Thanks, Bill. Hey, Vondia, I can totally relate. Great comment. And Bill, to kind of piggyback off of what John just asked, you had mentioned that there are good calendar apps or programs out there. I'm sure we're all using one or another. I've used a couple of different ones. Do you have any recommendations?
So if you haven't discovered Calendarly, which is calendar with the LY at the end, if you haven't discovered that, I think that's a brilliant discovery. Jennifer Wood in my office introduced me to it. And I know some of you know Jennifer. If you're trying to reach out and get someone's time, you can actually share your calendar and your calendar availability. And they can look at that and make that happen. So if you don't have someone helping you manage your calendar, but you've got to fill it with outsiders, try that app. There is a free version, and obviously, like any other app, you can pay and get a little bit more. But that's a way of saying, look, I've got these 7 times on my calendar, pick one. And I know there are others as well, but to me, I think Calendarly is a good one, because then it can respond almost immediately. Like, okay, good, that works. Here's the Zoom, or here's the GoToMeeting link, and it gets set up almost immediately. I don't use it enough myself, and Jennifer in my office does use it and uses it well. And you probably can see Hannah on here, and Hannah is our new summer intern and helping me manage my calendar. So do as I say, not as I do, right? But Calendarly is one that we used recently, just when we were part of the Ohio AHP conference. We used that if people wanted to schedule time with us. We had a few our advertised times, and people were able to grab those, and it worked out well. Okay, well, good. Well, I thank you for participating. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you all soon. Congratulations on all the success. I know I've been reading a lot about some of the successes. Lisa, congratulations on your groundbreaking. That was outstanding to see.
Thanks for all of your help, Bill.
No problem. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Thanks.